I'm going to go over some of the new changes in Retro Diffusion 11.5.0. So the biggest of those is probably the strong text guidance. And this is a new model that takes the prompts that you give and basically just aligns them better with the image that gets generated. Or rather, aligns the image better with the prompt. So it'll end up just following what you tell it to do a lot more accurately. There's also a new generation backend, and what that means is we can do really high resolution image generations, well, high resolution for pixel art, without encountering a lot of errors or weirdness or having to upscale them at all. There's also been a change to how the large language model functions. For one thing, it now runs on basically all hardware. It's absolutely tiny now, which is fantastic. It used to be about a 7 gigabyte model, and that just is not practical to run on most hardware. Now it's about 300 megabytes, which is an enormous change. Along with that, it's a little less intuitive or intelligent, I guess you could say, but it still gets the job done, and I'll show you some of that. With the strong text guidance, you kind of want to change how your prompts work a little bit, and I'll also demonstrate that. So to get started, let's just select a normal 64 by 64 area, and I'll show off, we got the default prompt here, a raven perched on a branch with dramatic mountains in the background, comma, clouds, mountains, beautiful landscape, all that. This is pretty normal. I'm going to set the generations back to 1 here. So we also have a new default for the modifiers. Now it is top-down at 35% and modern at 40%. This used to be front-facing at 50%, but I just found that modern looks better and probably aligns better with what most people think of when they think pixel art. So that new setting for strong text guidance is right here. You can enable and disable that, and it actually is persistent between when you close the program and reopen it, so it'll just remember your default. It is enabled by default because it runs on basically all hardware as well. And it really does improve how things look. So let's just, click OK here, and we'll start generating that image. Load up, all familiar, everything like that. The new thing here is that it loads this T5 text encoder, and that's the new model that, lets the images align better with what you tell it to. Crazy, look at that. Wow, it's what you asked for. Nuts. Yeah, and it just keeps doing that. Some of the style difference here is because of the new modifier settings, but it's also, down to that new strong text guidance. So let's do something that's maybe a little bit more difficult for the old model. So if I turn off this strong text guidance here, then we ask for like blonde woman wearing a red shirt, green pants, and blue earrings. Let's go for that. Let's see what it comes up with. So this is using the old text guidance model. And as you can see, that is not really what we asked for. Pretty much ignores what you tell it to do color-wise. If we add in the strong text guidance, though, loads that T5 text encoder again. And now it's actually following the colors that it was instructed to. Still not quite getting that earring, but if we bump up the size a bit, look at that. Yeah, and as you can see, that going straight to 128 by 128 is just flawless. It was basically effortless. We can go, even higher than that. Gets a little bit more difficult at higher resolutions, and you'll start seeing some more noise artifacts. but it's still going to be relatively consistent as far as like image quality and composition goes, which is not at all how it used to be. If you generated images, like large images previously, you'll know that it would mess up a lot and it would start duplicating things and it would just be weird in general. But now, I mean, it's a pretty normal image aside from, you know, some of this weird noise on the sides here. And it followed the colors that you told it to. And that's a pretty neat feature of the new strong text guidance. So if I turn this off now, and we'll use the same seed here just to be fair. And you'll see that it's not going to perform quite as well on the colors. Yep, those green pants got turned into kind of a blue. The earrings are gold. It's not following what you told it to as well. You know, other details don't look quite as good. Different shapes there. But yeah, it's just better. It follows what you tell it to do more accurately. One thing that you do want to be careful of is you don't want to use too many tags. So you can confuse it pretty easily. It's best to just describe prompts in very natural language and even like full sentences. And that's just the best way to go about it. So now we've kind of covered that strong text guidance along with the, you know, resolution stuff. I'm going to do, let's see. A green sports car in a wheat field. And this should just be, you know, pretty self-explanatory. But we can actually do a ton of different resolutions with this, and it'll look pretty much fine. Yep. Another big thing is aspect ratio. So you can actually make just things with real weird proportions. And sometimes it'll get kind of confused, but a lot of the time it'll handle it pretty well. Yeah, like for this example, that was a little too much, a little too extreme of an aspect ratio, but if we change it a bit, probably be able to get something pretty good. Yep, there it is. That's a, you know, a pretty crazy aspect ratio here. So that is the new generation engine that's working behind the scenes. It's better at higher resolutions, it's better at lower resolutions, it's just faster in general, and it actually uses a bit less memory at high resolution as well. So super, super big improvement. Now let's talk about the language model a bit. So the language model, which we can turn on with the Use LLM Enhanced prompt here. It's a little bit different than it was before. It's not quite as smart. So if you were using some fancy techniques for like telling the model to generate different stuff or like pick from a list of different items, like for example, you used to be able to say something like pick a object and then, you know, on a table or something like that, and it would fill in this pick an object with whatever it thinks is relevant in the scenario. That doesn't work quite as well. It does still work sometimes, but it's better to just be more specific. So like if I want to say have a canoe on a lake. Canoe on a lake. And I want maybe mountains in the background. I really like mountains, if you couldn't tell. And then we've got that LLM enhanced prompt turned on, and I'm gonna set the aspect ratio to this. Why not? Yeah. So now it will generate that prompt. You got that right here. Canoe glides gracefully on a crystal clear lake. Its hull is glinting in the sunlight. Blah 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 blah. So it took that, pretty short prompt that you gave it, and it just expanded it into a whole new arrangement, pretty much. And this is super helpful. It can be really useful maybe if you don't quite know what you want to generate, or you just want some inspiration. It can also be nice for just like giving super minimal detail and generating a bunch of stuff. So if I ask for like a car, just super, super basic, and we're going to go down to 64 by 64 here and generate nine images. So it'll actually go through and create all of those prompts for you, and it's really, really fast compared to the old model. Granted, I am running a 3090 graphics card here, so it might be a little slower depending on your hardware, but it's still tons faster than it used to be. And so you can see it took that, super short prompt and just turned it into these pretty descriptive long prompts. There's not a ton of variation, which is another drawback of having the smaller model. You can see it's basically a sleek black sports car or a sleek silver sports car, and that's not really something that can be changed. It's just a result of the size of the model. But it just made all these different images, and they're pretty detailed. I really like this one. Yeah, so that's the new language model, and it should work on pretty much all hardware, like I said before. You can use it, obviously, for a crazy wide range of prompts. You can use it on long prompts, like if I wanted to use it on this decent size default prompt that we have here, it'll do some pretty cool stuff with it and generally just make it better. It's a great way to enhance prompts if you're not really looking for something specific, or maybe just to get some ideas for specifics that you would want in a prompt. Yeah, it's just a nice help. So here, generating those images. It pairs super well with the strong text guidance because of how detailed it can get. It can really pull out a lot of the information from the prompt, unlike the previous text guidance, which wasn't so great at doing that. So now it'll actually incorporate more details of what you ask for into the actual image that you're generating. So you can see we got some pretty interesting variations of that original prompt here, especially with like the flower meadow here, it kind of looks like. That's pretty much the biggest new things in this update. A combination of things to improve how you're generating images, as well as a whole new way of just creating large image sizes. Like here, we're gonna make this giant image. And for the most part, it just keeps the composition consistent and generates pretty good quality images. You do get a bit more noise, you get some more artifacts, but not nearly as many as previously. And in general, it just looks a ton better, especially for portraits and landscapes and things like that. So if I ask for like bear standing in a river. And it can still add, smaller details to the scene, and you don't have to worry about any kind of upscaling or issues related to that. Yeah, get some pretty neat stuff. All right, that about wraps it up for the changes in this version, and I hope that this explanation was helpful. If you have any further questions, the Discord is always a great place to ask. And of course, if you want to get Retro Diffusion and you don't have it, there's links in the description. Thanks for watching.